Okay, I think we're ready to start. Can you hear me okay? Okay, good. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for your participation. We really appreciate you coming here at 6 o'clock in the evening to DC to be present for this tax seminar that we are putting together for you. We've been trying to organize this seminar for quite a while, and after we have sent out the reports for August, we wanted to meet face to face and have this presentation. What we are trying to cover in this seminar is the following. First, we want to give you a general overview of the tax reimbursement process. We also want to clarify the roles and responsibilities. We want to go over some of the recent enhancements that we have implemented, and we want to give you an idea of some of the enhancements that we have in mind. We are also going to talk about the changes in the tax reimbursement policy that was implemented at the end of 2018. Deloitte will present, Juan Monroy here from Deloitte will present the tax timeline for the US tax reimbursement. He'll also go briefly over the 2018 final tax calculation report and the schedule of payments for 2019 and 2020. We'll introduce the Deloitte team and contact information, and we'll also present the methods of submission of information for the settlement process. And finally, we will go over some retiree responsibilities. And we would like to keep the flow going of the presentation. We would like to have the questions at the end. And what we would like is to answer general questions. If there are specific questions, we would be happy to address those individually, either in a face-to-face meeting that we could have at the office, or via email or by phone. But for purposes of the presentation, we would like to address questions that are of general interest and no specific cases. Um, so in terms of the process, the retirees who receive a bank pension are eligible for tax reimbursement. And the way the process works is there is an initial tax profile setup that is done at the beginning of the retirement. So we have a Form 1R, which is the form that is used when when the staff first becomes a retiree. With that information, with those inputs that are provided in this Form 1R and the information that we have on the on the bank systems of the pension of the retiree, Deloitte performs a calculation that is an estimated tax calculation for the quarterly tax reimbursements. So those are like the estimated inputs and the estimated outputs, right? Then the following year, when we have the actuals information, when you receive your 1099, there is a process that is a prior year confirmation process in which Deloitte takes the actual information that is provided by you in Form 7R, and based on that information, Deloitte prepares a final tax calculation report that is typically sent at the end of August. So you should have received that report recently. So in general, that's the overview of the process, which takes place every year. In terms of the roles and responsibility, uh, I'm Monica Cox. I work in several of you know me. I'm in human resources in the compensation and benefits division. I'm the team leader for payroll and tax reimbursement. I'm responsible for tax reimbursement. In our role in compensation and benefits, we are responsible for the administration of the tax reimbursement process, and we manage the relationship with Deloitte. We are the ones who make sure that the tax reimbursements are processed in compliance to the tax reimbursement policy, and we also issue the 1099 forms. Deloitte, that's represented here by Juan Monroy, is our tax service provider. So they are the point of contact for questions or consultations that you might have related to tax reimbursement. And Deloitte also performs the calculations of your tax reimbursements. They send the reports and they send you the final calculations or adjustments. So it's important that you have clarity on both roles. We on IDB, we are responsible for the policy and we manage the relationship with Deloitte. Deloitte follows the policy that's established by the bank, and if there is any doubt in terms of application of the policy, they come to us and we clarify any doubts. Your first point of contact is Deloitte for any questions, and an escalation point is us. And of course, our doors are always available for you to answer any question that you might have. But the tax experts who know all the details are really Deloitte. We have been working in the past year on several enhancements. And the first of all is that we have completely revised our communication strategy. We had a number of forms that were outdated in the portal. The tax policy was outdated. The tax reimbursement manual was also updated. So we have done a number of improvements in terms of communication. First of all, now we have an updated tax reimbursement handbook that is in alignment with the updated tax policy that was approved in December. That's the one that you have received today. We have also been very proactive in terms of communications to retirees. We have implemented a new welcome letter to the new retirees so that they know what to expect once they are retired. We have updated all the tax forms, and all the tax forms are available in the retiree webpage. We have divided, if you go to the retiree webpage, you will see that there are tax forms that are for US taxpayers, and there are some tax forms that are for non-US taxpayers. So you can go and see there clearly what are the forms that apply to your case, and they're all updated. We have also been very proactive sending communications and reminders of the deadlines so there are no surprises and you know when things are due and what is expected. And we have also updated frequently asked questions and updated job aids. And also we have been very receptive to the feedback that we have been receiving from the retirees in terms of clarification of procedures, of clarifications of forms. So those have been several of the enhancements that we have worked throughout the year. One other enhancement has been the electronic issuance of the 1099 forms this year. In addition to sending the 1099 forms via US Postal Service, we also made available the 1099 forms in the retiree self-service. That was something that we just started this year, and we would encourage you to create your account in the retiree self-service so that you can download the 1099 form from the portal. We are for 2019 1099s that will be sent out in January. Our plan is to continue to send them by US Postal Service, so you will still receive it by mail, but they will also be available in the retiree self-service. So I would encourage you, for those of you who have not activated your retiree self-service account, activate it because the 1099s will be available there, and we have plans to add more information in the retiree self-service. In terms of other process improvements, We have updated the Form 7R, which is the form that is used to submit your prior year information. And we have also eliminated the need to submit tax returns. And this was in response to the feedback that we had received from several of you that had concerns about sending the tax returns. And we saw with the changes on the policy the opportunity to eliminate the submission of the tax returns. So starting this year, you were able to send just the Form 7R and not attach the tax return. One other comment that has been incorporated in our processes was the submission of the Form 4506T. In the past, we had the process for settlement that opened in March and closed in July, and then we had the process for Form 4506T that was later in the year. And the feedback that we were receiving was that the tax unit is asking for information all year round. So we said, okay, we're going to consolidate everything in just one request. And the 4506T now is part of the information that you submit with your Form 7R, so that we only have one request, one communication, and one deadline. And we have also worked with the staff retirement plan on the updates to Form 765, which is a form that we use to have updated your US tax residence status. And this is really important because we want to make sure that we have accurate information in the system. There are many retirees that change status from G4 to green card, then from green card to American citizen. There are some others that relinquish their citizenship, and all that has an impact on how we report or don't report that information to the IRS. So we have updated this Form 765, in which you can provide that information to SRP for SRP to update your US tax residence status, and based on that, we do the proper reporting. We have also implemented a new form that is the new Form 2R, and this form was in response to a need that we saw for situations in which the retirees change some of their inputs. Um, let's say that a retiree changed from their filing status, or the retiree changed the state. All those changes affect your tax reimbursement. And if we don't have that information, if we rely on information that was provided the year before, that can lead to either an over disbursement or an under disbursement. And we really didn't have a mechanism to capture these changes in status. They were handled via email or via phone call. Sometimes the requests were lost, and that was causing some inaccuracies on the reimbursements. So now we have a form that is Form 2R that is also available in the retiree self-service. And if you have a change in your circumstances that may affect your tax reimbursement, you can submit that Form 2R, and based on that form, Deloitte will do a recalculation of your estimated tax reimbursement. So when the final calculation is done, there will be a minimum difference between your estimated payments and your final tax reimbursement. So I would encourage you to look at the retiree page and look at these forms. And if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer the questions. But we want you to get familiar, especially with this Form 2R, because sometimes we have questions of why do I have to return money the following year? And it was because there was a change of state, or there was a change of filing status, or several other changes, and we made the estimated based on all the information. So in order to make the estimated reimbursements as accurate as possible, if your circumstances change, we need to have that form 2R, and then we can recalculate and make a reimbursement that's closer to what's going to be your final tax calculation. And then, well, as I mentioned, one other improvement is the Forms 1099 that are now available in the retiree self-service. We have been really pleased with the feedback that we have received about the availability of the 1099s. In fact, we have seen that there has been an increase in the number of retirees who have registered in the retiree self-service. So that's very encouraging, and we will continue launching more functionalities in the retiree self-service. Then one other form that we have implemented this year is a Form 7R for extensions. There are some of you who request an extension to the IRS, and in the past, we didn't have a formal process to channel those extensions also to the tax reimbursement process. So now, if you request an extension to the IRS, and then you're not going to be able to fill out the Form 7R by the deadline that we have, you can submit a Form 7R EXT extension in which you inform us that you have requested an extension, and that way we know that you have requested an extension and we don't suspend your tax reimbursements. So these are process improvements that have been implemented in the last year. And now we are working on future enhancements. We would like to have an online tax profile form. In other words, now we have the Form 1R or the Form 2R that are paper forms that you have to submit via email or in person. We would like to have those forms available in the retiree self-service. I understand that not all the retirees like the electronic version of things, but you will have the option. You will have the option. You will have the option to either submit it electronically or submit it on paper. So that for the profile. And also, we have plans to do an electronic submission of the Form 7R. So that would be also something that we would like to have in the retiree self-service for you to be able to complete so that you don't have to be doing paper forms. And by having the form electronic, there's more security. And also, we can tweak the form a little bit so that in order to, depending on your answers, we narrow the options, because when we have the paper form, we have to have a paper form that has a lot more boxes than the ones that apply to your personal situation. If we do this online and we can have some logic, it will be a little easier to fill out. So that's something that we are considering for as future enhancements. Having the information, having your inputs electronically is going to be the first step for us to be able to automate the calculations. Because right now, uh, doing the calculations is a tremendous manual work, because we receive the paper forms and then the calculations have to be done semi-manually. So by having the inputs online, we're going to be able to automate those calculations and also post the results also electronically on the retiree self-service. So those are all enhancements that we are working with Deloitte and also with our internal tax specialists and the ITE department to implement in the future. One other plan that we have as an enhancement is to post a template for Form 8938. This is something that also has been part of the feedback that we have received from the retirees. This year, when we sent the Forms 1099, we added an insert with information about the filing of the Form 8938, and we added the thresholds but we received some feedback from retirees saying, okay, thank you, that information was very useful, but I still have questions on how to fill out the 8938. So we're going to do a mock-up that is going to be posted on the retiree self-service that can serve you as a guide to fill out your own Form 8938. And we will also be adding new information to the list of frequently asked questions based on the questions that we have received. So what I want to convey to you is that we are receptive to your feedback, that your feedback is really very valuable to us. So please let us know whatever you think about as an opportunity to improve the process or to improve the communications. We are really trying to hear from you, and we want to hear from you on where the opportunities are so that we can incorporate it in our process. So far, these are the things that we have been working on the last 12 months, and these are the plans that we have for the future. And we will continue to work with you to see how we can continue this partnership to improve the process. In terms of the changes to the tax reimbursement policy, there was a combination of factors. First, there was the tax reform, which was approved by the US administration on December 2017. The approval of the tax reform was something that triggered the revision of the tax reimbursement policy because we needed to comply, we needed to process the tax reimbursement complying to the new US tax reform. And as we were revising the policy to see how we could incorporate the tax reform, we saw several opportunities to improve the process because the tax reimbursement policy that we had was a tax reimbursement policy that had not been updated since the 90s. And if you looked at that policy, there were several provisions in the policy that were completely outdated. And there was a big gap between the policy and how things were being done in practice. So, and also there was a big difference between how the process was done and administered for staff to how it was done for retirees. So we saw the tax reform as an opportunity not only to change the policy for the regulatory requirements, but also to look at the process for you in terms of the information that you have to submit, and also the process on our side on how we administer all the work that we're doing from the administration side, and see what made sense, how we could streamline the process. So the major changes of the tax policy was the implementation of the standard deduction. And this has been a tremendous change that has been, so far, what we have received, the feedback that we have been receiving from the retirees has been very positive because it has simplified things tremendously. With that implementation, the need for the tax return became irrelevant. So it was through the implementation of the standard deduction that we were able to discontinue the need for tax returns, which was another goal that we had because we wanted to respond to the needs to discontinue that. So we changed moved to standard deduction, we discontinued the need to submit tax returns, and then with that, with those changes and the new methodology, starting in 2020, we are going to have an alignment between the pay slips and the 1099s because we are going to be recording the tax reimbursements on the year that they are paid. In the past, there was a difference between the pay slips and the 1099s due to the tax settlement that was done the following year. And that created a high volume of questions and a lot of questions and a lot of concerns about errors. And there were no errors, it was just how the methodology was. So, starting in 2020, the 1099-R is going to be aligned with the pay slips. So, here in this illustration, you can see that before the change, this is until 2018, a retiree that had a pay in the pay slip on December, a retiree would have, let's say, a taxable pension of 30,000 and quarterly tax reimbursements of 4,000. So that retiree goes, looks at their pay slip, and in their pay slip, they see year to date 34,000. Then that retiree gets a few days later a 1099, and in the 1099 they see that their 1099 is for 33,700. And that 33,700 is because in the 1099 with the previous methodology, we were reporting the taxable income, yes, that's your pension, that's taxable, and the tax settlement from 2018. So it was not part of your taxable income, the tax reimbursements that you received in 2018. What was taxable was your tax settlement. So that was creating that difference between your pay slips and your 1099. And this difference of 34,000 and 33,700 was a difference that we tried to explain in the frequently asked questions that we posted in the website. And we also included language about that in the communications that were sent along to the 1099. But even with that, we received, and Deloitte received several questions about my 1099 is wrong because it doesn't match with my payslip. And it was not that it was wrong, it was just the way the methodology worked. So starting in 2020, we are aligning the pay slips with the 1099s because the quarterly tax payments are going to be recognized as income in the year in which they are paid. So following this example, starting in 2020, the taxable pension of 30,000 will be on the pay slip. The quarterly tax payments, which is what you receive, will be on your pay slips. And when you get your 1099, you are also going to get a 1099 that's going to be for 34,000 because it's going to include your taxable pension and it's also going to include your quarterly tax payments. So this is also something that we see as a tremendous improvement, not only in terms of the accounting, because in terms of accounting and GAAP, this was something that needs to be recognized on the year that is incurred, but also in terms of the administration of the process and in terms of explaining to everybody what is happening. And we are aligning this also to the process of staff, because for staff, it's always been that way. So that is where we are going for 2020. In terms of what's happening in 2019, 2019 is a year of transition. And we have sent some communications in which we have tried to explain that 2019 is a year of transition, but we want to take the opportunity that we have you here to go over this so that you have clarity on why we call 2019 a transition year. Okay, as you can see here, in 2019, there's still going to be a difference between the pay slips and the 1099 because it's a year of transition. And in this year of transition, we're going to have, on terms of the pay slip, it's very straightforward because in your pay slip, you're going to have your pension and you're going to have your tax reimbursement. You know what you have. On the Form 1099, you're going to have your taxable pension of 2019. You're going to have your quarterly tax payments because starting this year, we are reporting it in the year that are incurred, but we are recording the settlement from last year. which is the 2018 tax settlement. So the 2018 tax settlement is what's going to cause the discrepancy between your pay slip and your Form 1099. But this ends here because after this, we are this is going to happen in 2020, okay? And you can see that as part of the transitional provisions that were included in the tax reimbursement policy. And we sent you, you should have received the policy. We sent an email with the policy to all the retirees. So those are basically the major changes, and we will be sending communications. We have plans to start to send the 1099 forms by U.S. Postal Service and make them available through the retiree service in early January. So we will be sending you communications, and we will have language that explains this for those of you who have not participated, but I just wanted to take the opportunity to explain that. And well, now I'm going to pass it to Juan Monroy from Deloitte so that he can go more into the details of the timeline and the process. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. As Monica mentioned, my name is Juan Monroy. I'm the senior manager from Deloitte in charge of this account. I have been working on this account for at least the last 6 years, so many of you are very well known to me. And for those who I don't know, nice to meet you. Our office is always available to have a conversation with you. The most important thing that we want to do now is explain the timeline, because the complexity of the tax reimbursement settlement itself is that we have to look at 3 years overall. It's not only looking at 1 year, we have to go further and see what happened in the prior year, what is happening in the current year, and at least what's going to happen, or what we expect that is going to happen for the first and second quarter of the following year. So your letter that you have received, many of you have already received, is including this, all this timeline, is showing, is reflecting this reality. We are looking at your 2018 settlement. That happens normally between June, or starting in April, we start receiving through July. Then we do the tax settlement itself, or we start preparing for the tax settlement. Then we deliver the letter at the same, normally at the end of August. Some of you, this is delayed because we have received your information a little later, or we were missing some information. But in general, the majority of the population does receive their tax settlement by August. The timeline, as you can see, and we have divided it by quarters, so we can just see how the process works. So the quarterly tax reimbursements, as you know, it's done on a quarterly basis. You have to pay taxes, your taxes on a quarterly basis. The second row is your filing deadline, or your filing. Normally, the majority of people are able to file their return by April of the following year. Then the process continues to the submission of Form 7R. As Monica mentioned, this year, we did not request you to provide your tax returns. We provided you with a tax Form 7R that was a little bit complex because it was a different form that you were a little accustomed to, but that's going to improve because you're going to already know this form much better for following years. Then we prepare your final calculations in the period stated, and of course we are going to again start this process the following year for the year before. So the overall timeline is this. You will get this presentation also by email, and you will be able to review it, but we just wanted to give you the general sense that these calculations are not only about your prior year settlement. It looks further. There are projections that we have to make, assumptions that we have to make for the current year and the future and the following year, but they are based on facts that we understand from you. Certainly, things can change, and that's why the Form 2R has been created for all of you. So if there's a change in your spousal income, it increase or it decrease, you move to another state, that form is going to help us, even though we have already prepared a calculation, It's going to help us revise the calculation to be more accurate and not have issues on the following year of somebody being over reimbursed or under reimbursed. So as Monica mentioned, it's extremely important the use of these forms. Form 1R is for a new retiree. This initiates the tax reimbursement process itself. Form 2R is for all retirees who are already being served that need an update of their profile and a recalculation of their estimated taxes. What we want to show you here, many of you have already received your letter and you have reviewed this, but we want to show you how the process of the payments, the calculations and the payments relate to. So in this case, we're looking at the 2018 tax reimbursement settlement, the final one. So in this case, in this example, we have determined that this retiree should have received $4,900 as their tax reimbursement for 2018. At that moment, we have the information that retiree received advances of $6,300. That means that the retiree owes the bank $1,400. In the following section, which is included in the same page in your letter, we have also a projection of your 2019 tax settlement. As Monica mentioned, this year, the transition year, we have two extra numbers there. The first one is your 2018 tax settlement, the exercise that we performed. And the third one, or the second number that is there, is your 2019 projected tax settlement for 2019. So what this is showing you is that the taxable income that is going to be reported in your 1099-R this year is going to be a little bit higher because now includes two settlements, the 2018 and the 2019. However, in 2020, as Monica mentioned, the transition will have ended, and whatever you receive as tax advances in the 2020 tax year will be what is accounted for in your 1099. In this example also, and we have some arrows, the bank, because of the complexities of this year, of this transition year, the bank asked us to add an additional item in the letter, which is a breakdown of what your projected 2019 estimated tax liability was or will be, based on your status, federal and state. For those who don't have a state, of course, that will not apply. 100% of the tax reimbursement will be applicable to the federal estimated tax payments. But in this case, as you can see, we're breaking down that $8,845 that was projected as the 2019 settlement into federal and state. So you have an idea of how much you have to send or allocate of the tax reimbursements to each to the IRS and to the state, your corresponding state. So this was an enhancement because of the transition year. We are looking to continue this practice, so it's a little bit more informative, this form. Sometimes this letter seems to be a little bit more confusing. So we want to add this as part of our general process. And finally, what we want to show you is the last page of the letter, which is a summary of payments. We are reconciling everything into one place, so it's clear for you to understand what happened. So in this example, we are saying that the projected 2019 reimbursement owed to you would be $4,845. In this case, the retiree was owing money to the bank, $1,000. So basically, the bank, what it's going to do is net these two amounts and say, you don't have to send me a check. I'm going to just take this from the projected advances for 2019. This amount, the $3,845, then it was split into two quarters, the last remaining two quarters, the third and fourth quarter. Basically, it's split in 50% in half, and this individual by December 2019 should receive the full projected advance, of course, in this case, less the $1,000 that he owed the bank. And finally, the last item that is shown here is the 2020 first quarter and 2020 second quarter. Why is this so important? Because until this process starts again the following year, you have to have made estimated tax payments for the first and second quarter. You need the money to make those payments. So it is important to do a projection to see, with the information that we have received from you, how much we estimate that your 2020 advances should be. Now, this number, and in this case, seems a little lower versus the 2019. And of course, there's a logic. In 2019, your 1099 is going to be higher because of the transition. However, in 2020, everything is going to be normalized, and that's why this advance is lower. This doesn't mean that the advances are exact to what is going to happen. This just means that we need to give you, or the bank needs to give you some money to at least have to make your first and second quarter. When we do the exercise again the following year, any adjustments will be made based on new information that we have received. So we just wanted to go through the letter that you received so you understand what the letter is trying to explain to you. The Deloitte tax team, our partner, tax managing director in charge of the engagement is Francis Dinkins. As you can see, myself is there. I'm the main contact. I work with the IDB team very closely. We have two consultants that help us, Katerina Tour, Katia, many of you know her as Katia, and Yesenia Fallon. This is the team that serves on a daily basis IDB. We are here physically on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But if you call our phone number, which I'm going to provide in a minute, we will be available for you. We will answer the call. Now, understanding that, yes, we have a lot of calls. So it could be that you go to a voicemail, but we will try to call you immediately thereafter because we are answering some other questions from other retirees. So just to remind you, our email is taxconsultants@iadb.org, and our phone number is 202-623-2766. Again, just to remind you, the tax hotline is the phone number that I mentioned before. We answer all calls. We have a log. We try to respond to every single call that we do. You can imagine we have had a large volume this year because of the transition and all the questions, but we are there. We also have the email address, and we are here. So if you have a question, you receive your calculation, your letter, you don't understand it, you're more than welcome to stop by here. We are in the 5th floor, right around the corner from the staff retirement plan. Okay? This year, we also decided to change a little bit the submission methodology. Last year, we had too many ways that retirees could remit their documents, and that was causing either a backlog or in some cases, some documents were not recorded as received. So in order to streamline the process, to make it easier for you, we decided to reduce where you can send your information. The first alternative is the Deloitte portal, not the staff retirement portal, the Deloitte portal that you all should have access. We have received some feedback that some people don't have the user ID or the password doesn't work. And yes, that is a problem. This portal is used mainly for our other clients who get and gain access to this portal during the year many times. For security reasons, the security IT team for the entire Deloitte decided that if an account is inactive for more than 6 months, that account will be locked down and it has to be reset. So yes, in some cases you might have tried to access, you probably only access it once a year or maybe twice a year. It could be the case. So certainly you just give us a call to the phone number here at the bank, and we will be glad to first check if the account has been locked down, and we will ask them to release it so you have access to it. The other method is by paper, by mailing. We have a large population of retirees who are in the higher stages of their life who do not like to use who do not like to use electronic means. So we certainly have to be cognizant of that. We will love everybody to be able to submit everything electronically, complete the form online, and it will be great. But unfortunately, that's not reality. So we have just a mailbox set up for you so we can receive your documents by mail. About the portal, for those who have access, you have probably already seen it. This is the landing page. We're not going to go into too much into how it is, but as you see, there's a username and a password. The username normally is your IDB, the email that is on record with the staff retirement plan. And this is why it's also so important that your information is updated as as promptly as possible with the staff retirement plan, because we use that information to provide you with access. So your user ID is normally your email account that is recorded with the staff retirement plan. Your password is originally you receive an email with a temporary password, and then you will reset it and put whatever you want to use as your password. There are some limitations and some rules for security purposes that need to be followed, as well as a multi-factor authentication security feature, meaning in addition to your password, you will have to either use an app or a callback number from the system verifying that it's you who is trying to access the portal. Again, this is in line with policies all around the world for security, data protection. So yes, it's an extra step, but I'm sure all of you are getting something like this from your banks and IDB, and everybody is using these features to protect their information. So we are in line with that. If you forgot your password, if you have an active account and you forgot your password, you just have to click on the option Forgot Password. You're going to be asked security questions that you answered before, and you should be able to gain access. If for some reason your account was locked, that feature is not going to work because your account is inactivated. So in those cases, what we are doing is when we are informed by you to the tax consultant's hotline or by email, is we update your profile in that account, add information like your date of birth, your marriage status, your address. So then you can call the 1-800 number that is available, because unfortunately, due to security reasons, we are not able to grant you a password. It has to be electronically generated. So this team, once they verify your identity, will reset your password and you will get a new temporary password. But very important, this doesn't work just by clicking things. If you have a problem, call us. We will look into it and we will figure out what we need to do to resolve this issue. So in general, that's what we wanted to inform you about the process itself. We're always here. Call us, stop by, send us an email. We want to help. That's why we're here, to help you. That's why they have hired us, to help you. And we do, most of us speak Spanish, so if you're more comfortable in Spanish, we can talk in Spanish. Katya actually is Russian, part Israeli, so she has some knowledge there too, extra knowledge if we need to. And Francis speaks French, so we try to cover most of the common languages. So please stop by. You're more than welcome to stop by and say hi to us. And now I think Monica is going to finish with this section.
This is the good part.
This is the good part.
Yes, well, here, this is the part where I really, really need, or we need your cooperation. Because as I said, we are trying to be very proactive, reaching out to you with communications, with information, and we need to have your information updated. There are several of you that have change of emails, of change of addresses, And that information, when it's not updated in the system, we cannot get to you. And it's a little sad, but the truth is that every time we send a mass email or we send the 1099s, we get a whole bunch of rejections in the mail, or we have a whole bunch of rejections in the email. So we need your help to make sure that your information is updated. If you have a change of address or a change of email, please update that information with the staff retirement plan. And they're very good updating the information. We don't update the information, and that's something that is important for you to understand. Deloitte doesn't update the information in the bank system. We in human resources don't update the information in the bank system. The staff retirement plan is the one that updates all the information that is for retirees. So for changes in your information, please go to SRP, and they will be very quick updating the information because we work in very close collaboration with them. Then another really important thing is the updates on the U.S. tax residence status. We are we are trying to avoid problems of misreporting to the IRS due to incorrect U.S. tax residence status. If you change from, as I said, from G4 to green card, or if you're a US citizen and then you decide to go somewhere else and relinquish your US tax residence, you have to let us know that you have relinquished to your US tax residence, because if you don't, we are going to continue reporting your information to the IRS. And that creates a lot of problems. So if you change either way, either to become a US tax resident or to relinquish your US tax residence, it's very important that you communicate that information to SRP, for SRP to update that information in the system, and for us to stop reporting your information to the IRS or start reporting your information to the IRS within the time frame that the IRS expects the information to be reported. So that's really very important. Then also, we have said that from the beginning, but I want to emphasize, if your circumstances change, please submit a Form 2R. Don't wait until the following year to see a big under disbursement or a big over disbursement caused by not updating your information. There is a form, the form is 2R, it's very simple. You can download the form from the portal, or you can go to Deloitte and they will provide you with the form. But if you know that your circumstances have changed, please reach out and provide that information so that we can recalculate your tax reimbursement and make it as accurate as we can. Then finally, we have a calendar and we announce the deadlines with some anticipation. Like we open up the process in March for the prior year confirmations, and the process is typically open until July, first week of July. So there is enough time for you to complete the process, or if you have to request an exception, an extension, to request an extension. But please, we will appreciate if you meet your deadlines, because otherwise we have to continue to send reminders and monitor the reminders. It creates a tremendous burden on our side to be monitoring those issues. And also that if you miss the deadline, you cannot expect to have the calculation completed by the date, right? Because the deadline is in July, and we are processing the third quarter calculations, the third quarter reimbursements in August, which include the adjustments of the prior year. So there is over 1,000 calculations that need to be done. So those calculations are done between the July 7, July 8 deadline and early August because we need to have the information to be processing in the system. So we have a very short window of time to process these thousands of payments. So if you miss the deadline, we will not be able to meet, to process the reimbursement or to do the calculation for the August 31st. Also, we would like you to, whenever you're filling out the form, prior to the submission, if you have questions on how the information has to be filled out, please reach out to Deloitte before you send your information. Because if right now we under the current process, we don't have the tax returns. So we are relying 100% on the forms. So if there is incomplete information on the forms or incorrect information on the forms, Deloitte cannot go and look at the form and take the numbers from the forms. They have to send it back. And then that creates also delays on the process. So if there is any questions on how the information has to be filled out or any doubts, please reach out. And also, before sending your form, double check, like do a quality assurance of your form just to make sure that everything is correct and that there is no missing information, to try to minimize the returns or the additional requests. What we would like is to have the form with all the information needed to be able for Deloitte to do the calculation on one try, right? We want to avoid the back and forths because there is missing or incomplete information. So we really, really need your cooperation on that to try to be more efficient in this process. So, well, these are just the final points. I know I've been saying that from the beginning, but I just want to make sure these points are clear because they're really, really important, and that's where we need your support. So now I think we open it to questions.